Yo Forkies, I'm starting a new opening chess series on my YouTube channel here on Forky Chess, and in this opening series I will show you all the theory you ever need to know in the semi-slow defense. So this is the starting video. I will just go through some of the basic variations, I will explain some of the ideas behind playing the semi-slow defense and even playing the slow defense. So of course this is the defense that happens to the queen's gambit, so of course d4, d5, c4, and now we don't play the usual e6, which would be the queen's gambit declined. We also don't grab the pawn on c4, we defend our center by playing pawn to c6. So why would you play this position, why would you play this move instead of just playing e6 and opening up the dark square bishop? So the most basic idea behind this system is that if white plays a random move, let's say pawn to h3, our idea behind playing pawn to c6 is that we can take on c4, and after, let's say, e4, we can play b5 very quickly, and the b5 pawn and the b5 square are defended. So that's the idea of c6. We are just trying to threaten to take on c4 and then playing quickly b5. And that is also the idea of the slow defense. So in the, let's say, the most common variation, which is e3, just opening the dark square bishop, we are simply solid, we play knight bd7, and let's say, yes, there are many options on the board, we will analyze all of them in the future videos, but the most promising line for white, in my opinion, is to play the move bishop d3. I think it's also the main line. Maybe the main line is to play queen c2 here, but yes, bishop d3 is the standard way of playing these positions, and now we again see the point of playing pawn to c6 on the second move of the game. While the bishop has developed, he spent one tempo. So we can grab a pawn on c4, white needs to take, spending another tempo, and now we play b5 and the b5 pawn is defined because we played pawn to c6 on move 2. And now bishop has to move again, and then we can just start by developing the bishop to this diagonal, which is also one of the most crucial ideas of the semi-slow defense you will ever need to know. Of course, the idea is that we, let's say, put the bishop on b7, we play c5 as close as soon as possible, excuse me, and as you can see, if white just doesn't know what he's doing, black is already slightly better. This bishop will decide the game of this opening. We are developing the bishop, it's super strong on this very long diagonal, it's fianchettoed here, and we also are gaining a lot of space by playing c6 and b5, and then of course trying to play for c5 again. So let's go back to the original position, how we enter the semi-slow, of course by playing c6 and then knight f3, or knight c3 is also a possibility, and after knight f6, knight f3 to play e6 now, and yes, the idea is to create this solid pawn chain, which is actually a pawn pyramid. So yes, this is the starting position of the semi-slow. Now white has only like two real options to play. The first one is being e3 as I showed you, and after e3 we are solidly developing the knight and then white has many options. But the other one is more aggressive way of playing the semi-slow with the white pieces, which is to play bishop to g5 here. Now black can try to take right away, which is very hard to play. This is the Botvinnik variation and it's very sharp. I don't play these positions, I don't know them as well, but yes, as you can see, e4 is now played, threatening e5, also attacking the pawn. But yes, this is the Botvinnik variation of the semi-slow. Now we play b5, we don't care about e5 because we play h6, and yes, this is by far the most aggressive and the most sharp variation in all of the semi-slow, and I will analyze it extensively in the future videos. But for now, all we need to know is that we are defending the pawn on c4 by playing b5, and we are not losing piece because we have this h6 move attacking the bishop, and after bishop h4 we play g5, and this is super crazy. Of course, knight takes on g5 is the best move after takes. Bishop takes back, we are still pinned, we cannot move the knight, we lose the queen. And yes, now knight bd7. I won't go into too much depth as of now, but we will get another video especially trying to get you guys familiar on the Botvinnik variation of the semi-slow defense as well. But that's not forcing to take here and allow e4, e5 to happen at any moment. The more solid way of playing here is to play the simple h6, and we are forcing black to do something with the bishop. If bishop takes, we simply take with the queen. nothing special. This is known as the anti-Moskov. And if we play bishop h4, this is the true Moskov gambit. Excuse me, I messed up. Bishop f6 is the Moskov, and bishop h4, excuse me, is the Moskov gambit. So here we take, and now e4 can be played, but the big difference from before is that we don't play b5 along e5, which would retranspose into the Botvinnik. We play g5 first, and now there is no knight takes. We are not pinned yet. We can just play bishop e7 and if e5 knight d5, and we are simply winning the game as easily as that. So bishop goes back to g3, and why this is a gambit? Well, because we play b5. Once again, we are just defending the pawn on b5 with our move pawn to c6 as of move 2. The pawn on c4 is pretty okay, and the position is pretty much equal. So yes, this is the more solid way of playing, with h6 following with either bishop h4 or bishop to h4 or bishop f6, excuse me. But the ultra solid way of playing this position is to play knight bd7 here. Well, this is not technically the semi-slow defense anymore, although we have this pawn pyramid in the center, and on the queen side maybe trying to play a6 b5, also an idea if takes, of course, b5. But yes, now of course white is trying to develop, so he will play e3 defending the c4 pawn, and now we don't take. After bishop takes on c4, he didn't spend a tempo, so this is slightly worse. Also the bishop is out from the pawn chain. But we play queen to a5, and this is the Cambridge Springs defense. You probably have heard of this opening before. This is a very standard way of playing against the queen's gambit. It can also be, it can also happen from d4, d5, c4, e6, and then, for example, knight c3, knight f6, and knight f3. And we can play many things here. Probably bishop e7 is the most solid, and after bishop g5, we can play c6, e3, and we play queen to a5, and this is kind of similar without the knight on d7, so probably knight d7 is better first. I don't know the difference of before. Hold on. Where did I go wrong? So I don't play the queen's gambit decline, so I have no idea what's happening here. Let's say bishop g5, c6, and now what? e3. How do we go to? Did I castle in that position? Let's go back to the Cambridge Springs defense, which is queen to a5 very soon. So here. Yeah, so e3 is played without bishop being developed. So let's say, okay, I don't even, yeah, bishop is on g5. We play knight bd7, e3, and queen a5, and this is the Cambridge Springs, yeah, from this move forward with e6 as well. But okay, let's go back to the semi-slow. So knight c3, knight f3, knight f6, knight f3, and d6 is the standard way of getting into semi-slow. And if you're a slow player, of course, one big downside of playing the semi-slow is that white can play for a draw immediately. I mean, of course, white can play for a solid equal position, but this is especially draw. I mean, drawish. Takes and takes is the exchange slow defense. Everything is symmetrical, identical, the pawn structure, without any imbalances whatsoever. But yes, I will also be covering the slow defense later in the month, later in the year. We will see how that will go. But yes, this is very solid, but I have won like many games in the exchange variation of the slow defense. I also have beaten like 2200 rated player in casual blitz, but yeah, it's not as simple. I mean, we will develop, and if white doesn't know what he's doing, we play a6, b5, and get the knight to c4 as quickly as possible. So that's just the idea to have in mind. But yeah, let's go back to the main position with pawn to e3. We developed the knight, and now white has many options. We looked at bishop to d3, which is the Meran way of playing. And the other variations like queen c2, bishop e2, and b3, as you see on the board, are anti-Meran ways of playing. So for example, queen c2 is the by far main line of the anti-Meran. We won't develop the bishop by taking and playing b5 and getting into on this diagonal. We'll develop the bishop pretty differently. You will see how in just a second. We play bishop d6 here. let's say bishop d3, and now, as I mentioned, we don't take here and play for b5. That would be possible, but not very good with the queen on c2 already. The c6 pawn is now slightly weaker. We can't play c5 just yet, so it's not as good. Of course, playable, but we don't take. We simply castle, and after castles for white as well, our idea is to prepare e5 and developing the bishop like this, once the knight is moved. So the main line now is to take, but not with the idea to play b5, with the idea to maybe at some point play e5 as well. So let's say e5, random move like h3 is actually the main line, and then we get queen to e7, and we'll take, we will move the knight maybe to f8 to g6, and we'll develop the knight, the bishop somewhere on this diagonal. h3, by the way, very useful move, stopping any bishop g4 nonsense. So yes, this is playable for black as well. We will see this all theory later in the week, later in the month. But yes, queen c2 is the best way of playing if you want to play the anti-Maran. There are also other moves like pawn to b3, which is slightly provocative by white. Black is already slightly better because we develop a big initiative with bishop to b4. And now you need to play bishop d2, otherwise you're losing a pawn. I will show you that in the moment, maybe in the next video, I don't know. Yeah, we just develop the dark square bishop with a tempo on the knight, and then we castle as quickly as possible, bishop d3 again, and we play queen e7 and e5 with the same idea as before, developing the knight to this diagonal, and black stands pretty good. And why would you play c6, not e6? Well, the ideas in the Semi-Slav are far more easy to understand if you ask me. We want to develop this bishop on c8. Yes, we are blocking the bishop like very soon in the Semi-Slav, but our whole game plan will be chosen by us. We will choose either to play takes on c4 and then b5 and develop the bishop to long diagonal. Maybe we'll choose to play bishop d6, queen e7, castles, rook e8 and prepare for e5 pawn break. That's also a major idea. Our knight from b8 always goes to d7, and it's pretty simple to know that. And also, if white won't play the two main lines with e3 and bishop g5, we are already better. Why? Let's say bishop f4. I get this a lot in games. Bishop f4 is a bad move. And I will also cover all the sidelines in the Semi-Slav defense. It will probably be my last video in the series, but it's also important to know what to do against this, which is very bad move. Bishop f4 is much worse for white. I mean, it's minus 0.5 for black on move 5. That means that, yeah, white is screwing something up. So yeah, bishop f4. What's the idea of the Semi-Slav in the Slav defense when pawn is on c6? Well, our idea is to take on c4, and we do just that. Even if g3 is played, we do the same. We take and play b5. So let's go back to bishop f4, which is even worse than g3. We take. If e3, for example, we play b5, it's minus plus almost. I mean, I'm slightly overreacting here. It's minus 0.7. If we run a computer even on higher depth, it will show even bigger advantage for black. But yes, being up a pawn on move 6 is very good. We'll develop the bishop to d6, we will castle, knight goes to d7, bishop goes to b7, and we play a6 and c5. And yes, now that I mentioned a6, it's a very important move in the Semi-Slav. If we go to the Maran, which is e3 and then bishop d3, we take and play b5, and now we go a6, which is a super important move. Well, why would be this little pawn move so important? Well, the little pawn move allows us to, after castles, play the very powerful pawn to c5. Well, why should we play a6? Well, because if we play c5 right away, the b5 pawn is hanging. So we need to play a6 first. It's kind of prophylactic move, defending the b5 pawn, and then we strike with c5, opening the long diagonal, and we are better. Castles is already a mistake. The only move that gives white slight advantage here, and I mean like black has equalized already, I believe, is e4. And we get into some real deep troubles with e4. It's crazy. c5 is the theory. Now white can choose between pushing either of the pawns. if you play e5, just to illustrate, I can take on d5, I can take on d4, and the very important move why white is not worse here is to take on b5. And if you don't know that, yeah, it's hard. Now takes, and we take with the g pawn, and we will develop like this. We'll play king f8, king g7, and we're slightly, I mean, not better. If white knows the theory here, black is not better, white is not worse. But for example, if you just wanna go after pawns like bishop b5, oh yeah, queen a5. So if you take this pawn, it's also bad because we play queen b6 and we develop big initiative with, for example, just bishop b7. And yes, white has 5 pawns, excuse me. We also have 5 pawns, but we are better. Why? We have the attack. We go bishop d6, we develop the knight to e5, for example. We're just better. We are crashing through on the king side. And if you look at this position, if white just castles, queen b6 defends the pawn and we're up a pawn. We're up a pawn in the main line of an opening. And I like being up material, so the semi-slav is perfect, where we just threaten to take the pawn on c4 as of move 2 basically, and then we play for b5, we develop the bishop, and it's pretty great. So another very, very important point behind playing the slow defense at first is that if you want to defend your center with e6, that gives white a chance of playing the exchange Queen's Gambit declined. Well, why would be this better for white than the exchange slow? Well, the exchange slow is just very drawish. The exchange Queen's Gambit declined is not drawish at all. I really like the position from white's perspective. We will develop the bishop to f4, e3, knight f3, bishop goes to d3, knight goes to c3 with castle, and then we have this asymmetry. Well, what am I talking about? Everything is symmetrical. Well, it's not. We have 2 pawns on the queen side, black has 3. That means that white has a chance to play for the minority attack, which just gives a long-term advantage to white. And black needs to be very active, and I like playing positional chess, so I don't like this with e6 and the exchange Queen's Gambit. In c6 there is no way of getting into that pawn structure. I mean, there is, but you can avoid it if you want. Like e6 you can also take if you're white in the semi-slow. You can take on move 5 in the semi-slow. It's not the most popular move, but it's by far playable. You can take on d5 at any moment you want if you're white. But yeah, this gives us a chance of just taking back with the e-pawn, which would retranspose to the Queen's Gambit declined, but we also have the chance to take with the c-pawn if we want. And this is, yeah, again, pretty drawish. We have a stuck bishop, but the position is just headed for a draw from this position, so more than 50% of Grandmaster games finish in a draw here, and black wins like 16% of other games, so that's pretty good position for black. But yes, if you want to go into a reversed Carlsbad, you can also take with the e-pawn, and if you're okay with it. And yeah, why is it this better? Well, we get the bishop to d6 and we are not stuck with the bishop on e7. In some positions, if bishop e7, then taking with c takes on d5 is slightly better for white, because bishop doesn't belong on e6 in the reverse Carlsbad, it belongs on d6 definitely, on this long diagonal. So be aware, if your bishop is on e7, then you might think about taking with the c-pawn instead of e-pawn, because bishop has to be on d6. Of course there is nothing wrong, it's like equal position as well, but yeah, this doesn't really matter. So this is the starting position of the semi-slow. I will have probably around 6 videos. One will be covering the h6 variation in bishop g5. One will be covering the very dangerous Botvinnik variation. One will be covering, oh yes, I will have 2 videos, probably on bishop h4 and on bishop f6. So let's say this is 3 videos. Bishop h4 is a very aggressive one. Bishop f6 is pretty standard. I won't be covering the Cambridge Springs, that's the Queen's Gambit declined. But in e3, yes, there is knight bd7, of course, forcing. And then we have bishop d3, which is the Meran, so 4 videos. and all the anti-Meran setups with queen c2, bishop e2 or b3, which is 5 fiddles, and all the sidelines, for example takes here or g3, or yeah, this dubious move bishop f4 will be in the last 6th video. So in total I will have 7 videos, this one which is the introduction, and then 6 others. So if you wanna play the Semi-Slav, I will give you here the full repertoire you will ever need with the black pieces, and if you are the Queen's Gambit player with the white pieces, then you will learn interesting ways of playing against the Slav defense. And very annoying being bishop g5, I don't like facing this, so maybe you can start thinking about this variation if you're playing d4 c4 with white. So yes, this will be pretty much it for today's video. I gave you some ideas, it's not much, but of course you need to remember that our basic idea is to take on c4 and play b5, either defending the pawn or attacking the bishop and then developing the bishop to b7, playing a6 and c5. This is the core idea of the Semi-Slav defense. So if you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing so you won't miss any other opening videos on this YouTube channel, and have a good day. Bye bye.